Have you ever found yourself standing at a crossroads, unsure which way to go, caught in the grip of doubt? In those moments, it feels as if the ground beneath your feet is shifting. The Buddha knew this feeling well, and instead of offering blind assurances, he handed us something far more powerful. A set of questions that cut through uncertainty like light breaking through fog. These are not ordinary questions. They are tools, 7 precise inquiries designed to help us examine our actions, our intentions, and even the very sense of self we cling to. Imagine, for a moment, if doubt no longer had the power to paralyze you, if you could look directly into your own mind and see, with clarity, which path leads to peace and which leads to suffering. That is the promise of the Buddha's method, and it begins not with belief but with investigation. When we begin with the Buddha's 7 questions, we are not stepping into a lecture hall filled with abstract theories. We are stepping into a quiet dialogue with ourselves. The Buddha never said, "Believe me simply because I am your teacher." Instead, he said, "Look carefully, ask yourself, test your own experience." And this is what makes his approach timeless. It gives us the courage to examine life as it really is, rather than how we want to be. So, what are these questions pointing to? At their heart, they ask us to distinguish between what is skillful and what is unskillful. In modern terms, that means learning to notice which choices lead to peace and which choices feed more turmoil. But the beauty of the Buddha's method is that it is not just about labeling actions as good or bad. It is about observing their consequences. Think about the last time you spoke out of anger. In that moment, maybe the words felt sharp and satisfying. But what happened after? Did your heart feel lighter or heavier? Did the tension dissolve, or did it multiply? These are the kinds of reflections the Buddha invites us into. And if you pay close attention, you begin to notice a pattern. Anger always leaves behind ashes, while patience and compassion leave behind calm. The first step, then, is to train ourselves to pause and ask, where does this path lead? If it leads toward long-term harm, even if it feels good in the short run, then the Buddha would call it unskillful. If it leads toward clarity, stability, and kindness, even if it is difficult at first, then it is worth cultivating. This is not dogma. It is direct evidence from your own life. To make this practical, imagine carrying a small inner lantern everywhere you go. Each action you take, each word you speak, each thought you entertain, hold up to that lantern and see. Does it cast a clear light, or does it deepen the shadows? That simple act of checking can transform ordinary moments into steps on the path of wisdom. And here's the hook that keeps us engaged. The Buddha says you don't need to wait for years of meditation to see results. Even a single moment of honest self-examination can dissolve a layer of doubt. It's like pulling a thorn from your foot. Immediately, you feel relief. In the same way, when you catch yourself choosing peace over conflict, clarity over confusion, you taste freedom right there. This is where the journey begins, not with blind faith, but with a gentle but persistent question to yourself. Is this skillful or unskillful? Where will it lead? That is the first spark of discernment, and once lit, it can guide you through every storm. Once we understand that the Buddha's method begins with simple categories, skillful and unskillful, blameworthy and blameless, the next step is to bring these principles into our own lives. It is one thing to nod and agree that kindness is better than cruelty, or that honesty is better than deceit. But it is another thing entirely to pause in the middle of your day and ask, what am I actually doing right now? What intention is moving me? And where will it take me if I follow it? This is what makes the 7 questions alive. They are not dusty words on a page. They are a mirror you can hold up at any moment. And the reflection is not always flattering. Sometimes we see that our choices are fueled by pride or irritation or fear, but that is the beauty of the practice. When we see clearly, we are no longer helpless. We can choose differently. I once knew a man who struggled with gossip. He would speak lightly about others, thinking it was harmless fun. But one day he stopped and asked himself, after I talk this way, do I feel stronger or weaker inside? Do I bring people closer or push them apart? The answer was painful. His words left him feeling empty. From that day, he decided to practice restraint. And little by little, he discovered the quiet joy of speech that heals rather than harms. This is how the Buddha's questions work. They are gentle, but they cut deep. They turn everyday habits into opportunities for wisdom. And here's something important. You don't need to walk this path alone. You can share these reflections, discuss them, even challenge them. In fact, that's why I'm creating these stories. Not just to speak into the void, but to walk this journey with you. So if these words resonate with you, if even one story touches a place in your heart, I invite you to take a simple step. Leave a comment with your own reflection. Share this video with a friend who might need it, or simply press like to let me know you are here, listening. And if you'd like to walk further together, don't forget to subscribe. That way, whenever a new teaching or story arrives, you'll have it ready, waiting to guide you a little deeper. Because remember, the Buddha's path is not just about listening. It's about living. And every time we pause to reflect, every time we share what we've learned, we take one more step toward freedom from doubt. Imagine stepping into a courtroom. The atmosphere is serious. A judge sits high on the bench. Witnesses wait nervously, and the accused stands in silence. Normally, this scene belongs to the outer world. But the Buddha invites us to imagine a different kind of trial, the trial that takes place inside our own heart. Here, the judge, the witness, and the accused are all the same person. You. When we engage in self-cross-examination, we are like that judge. We ask, this intention I had, was it rooted in kindness or in harm? This word I spoke, did it build trust or did it fracture it? This action I carried out, what fruit did it bear, both for myself and for others? We are not asking these questions to condemn ourselves, but to see clearly, because only when the truth is spoken openly in the courtroom of the heart can we begin to act with wisdom. Take, for example, the case of jealousy. A woman once confessed that whenever her colleague received praise, a bitter voice rose inside her. At first, she ignored it. Then she began to justify it, telling herself, I work harder, I deserve more. But when she finally turned the judge's eye inward, she asked, does this envy make me stronger or weaker? Does it help me grow or does it shrink my heart? The answer was clear. The moment she admitted it, the envy lost its grip. Awareness itself became the verdict, and freedom began to bloom. This is the gift of the Buddha's method. It doesn't rely on punishment or guilt. It relies on clarity. When you see that an action leads to harm, you naturally let it go, just as you would naturally drop a burning coal once you realize it is searing your hand. And when you see that another action leads to peace, to generosity, to joy, you find yourself drawn to it again and again. And here's a deeper layer. As we refine this practice, we realize the judge's gaze does not stop at outer actions. It begins to question the very sense of I that clings behind them. The mind asks, is this constant grasping at me and mind truly skillful? Or is it another subtle chain that keeps me bound? Just as a careful judge doesn't stop at surface testimony, but probes deeper, we too begin to uncover the hidden assumptions behind our choices. It is a humbling process, but also liberating, because the more we see, the less we are fooled. And when the mind is no longer deceived, doubt has nowhere left to hide. The Buddha often taught not through long theories, but through stories. His listeners were farmers, kings, merchants, monks, people with daily struggles just like ours. And so he gave them examples that spoke directly to their lives. One day, a monk came to the Buddha with deep confusion. He had heard that the 5 aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, were not self, but his mind rebelled. If none of these are self, then who suffers? Who enjoys the fruit of actions? If there is no self, why should I even try? The question was sharp, almost like a trap. If the Buddha answered one way, the monk would cling to self. If he answered another, the monk might fall into despair. What did the Buddha do? He did not argue in abstract terms. Instead, he turned the monk back toward self-examination. When you identify with the body, do you gain freedom or do you suffer? When you cling to feelings, do they stay or do they change? The monk was forced to look not at philosophy, but at direct experience. And as he saw the shifting, unreliable nature of body and mind, his attachment loosened. From that loosening came release. Another time, a powerful king sat with a venerable monk. Surrounded by luxury, the king still felt uneasy. He asked about aging, sickness, and death, things his wealth could not protect him from. The monk did not flatter him with comforting words. Instead, he asked simple questions. Great king, can you stop your hair from turning white? Can you order your body not to fall ill? Can you command death not to come? The king, honest before himself, had to admit, no. That realization pierced him deeper than any sermon. For the first time, he saw that clinging to wealth and power was like holding sand. It could not stay in his grasp. What do these stories show us? That the Buddha's method was not just for monks and forests, but for anyone willing to ask honest questions. Whether you're a ruler or a worker, whether you live in ancient India or in today's busy cities, the principle is the same. Look closely, test your assumptions, and see what leads to peace and what leads to suffering. In fact, we can apply this right now. Think about the device you're holding in your hand. Does it always bring clarity or sometimes distraction? When you scroll endlessly, does it leave you nourished or drained? This is the same cross-examination, updated for our age. The courtroom is not far away. It is right here, every time we make a choice. And here's the encouraging part. Just as those monks and kings found freedom by facing their truth, so can we. The questions may be old, but the answers are always fresh, because they come from our own lives, from this very moment. When I reflect on the Buddha's method of questioning, what strikes me most is how practical it is. It is not a teaching locked in temples, hidden in scriptures, or reserved for scholars. It is a lamp you can carry in your pocket, lighting up the smallest corners of your day. Think of the times you act on impulse. Perhaps you raise your voice at someone you love. Perhaps you scroll through your phone late into the night, promising yourself just one more post. Perhaps you buy something you don't need, chasing a brief rush of pleasure. In each of these moments, you can pause and ask, where does this lead? Is this path skillful or unskillful? That question alone can turn the tide. The power lies not in forbidding yourself, but in seeing clearly. When you recognize that an action drains your energy, makes your heart heavy, or leaves you restless, wisdom naturally whispers, let it go. And when you notice that another action, listening deeply, speaking kindly, pausing before reacting, brings a sense of ease, you feel drawn to it again. The practice becomes less about following rules and more about following results. I remember a young friend who struggled with anger. He told me, I know it's wrong to snap at people, but I just can't stop. I asked him, after you snap, how you feel? He paused. Empty, guilty, alone. Then I asked, and when you manage to hold back or respond calmly, how do you feel? His eyes softened, peaceful, proud of myself. That was it. He didn't need me to preach. He needed to see with his own eyes the difference. Once he saw, change became possible. This is why the Buddha said the practice rests on honesty, mindfulness, and heedfulness. If we lie to ourselves, if we forget to pay attention, or if we dismiss our actions as unimportant, then the questions lose their edge. But when we bring sincerity and care, they become sharper than any blade, cutting through layers of doubt and delusion. And here's the part that touches me most. This method respects our freedom. The Buddha doesn't command us. He trusts us. He trusts that when we truly see what leads to suffering and what leads to peace, we will choose wisely. Not because we are forced, but because it feels like coming home. So ask yourself, what small action today could you examine with these 7 questions? Maybe the way you speak to a colleague. Maybe how you treat your own body. Maybe the way you use your time when no one is watching. Begin there. You don't need to overhaul your life in one grand gesture. You just need to start with one honest question, asked again and again, until the path becomes clear beneath your feet. We have walked together through a journey of questions, not answers carved in stone, but questions that stay alive in the heart. The Buddha's gift was never to hand us ready-made certainty. His gift was to teach us how to investigate, how to shine the light of awareness into the shadows of doubt. And when doubt loses its power, what takes its place is not blind faith, but a quiet, steady confidence. Think of it this way. Every time you pause to ask, is this skillful or unskillful? Does this choice lead to peace or suffering? You are planting a seed. And with each seed, a garden begins to grow, a garden of clarity, compassion, and freedom. At first it is small, fragile, but as you keep tending it, day after day, it becomes strong enough to weather storms. This practice is not distant, not mystical. It is as close as your next breath, as simple as your next choice. It begins the moment you decide to stop drifting and to start looking honestly. And when you do, the 7 questions are always there, waiting like an old friend, ready to guide you. So now, I'd like to turn the mirror toward you. What part of your life are you ready to examine with these questions? What intention, what habit, what hidden doubt is asking for your attention today? Share in the comments. I would love to hear your reflections. And if this journey has touched you, even in a small way, I invite you to press like, so others can discover it too. Share this with a friend who might be carrying their own doubts. And if you wish to keep walking together, don't forget to subscribe so that each new story, each new teaching arrives right at your door, ready to support your path. In the end, the Buddha's path is not about collecting knowledge. It is about transforming the heart. And transformation begins with one simple act: asking the right question at the right time and listening deeply to the answer.